Hey guys, Kyle here. So, just before the show starts, I wanted to mention our Patreon. You can pay us $1 a month as a thank you, as a tip. You can pay $2 a month to get access to one of our bonus content shows, episodes 2 days early, and a secret Discord chat where all of our Patreon donors get to go and hang out and talk with us directly. Then there's a $5 tier that you can donate to get access to a whole bunch more content. We have multiple bonus episodes on there. So please check it out. Patreon.com/itgetsweird. We don't advertise, we don't make money. So check it out and throw some money if you think that would be cool. Thanks. Welcome to It Gets Weird, our comedy show where we explore the unusual, the unbelievable, and the unexplained to try and make your world a little weirder. I'm Kyle.
And I'm Niall, and it's beginning to look a lot like fall around here.
It's beginning to look a lot like spooky season.
It is, honestly. Jules wanted to watch like a movie last night, and every time she would bring up another movie, it just, for some reason, there was a force telling me that it's just not the time. And I realized it's because it's spooky season. And she was trying to watch like period dramas.
And you wanted to watch
adult dramas and stuff. And I want to watch someone get
that
murdered.
Kills. Yeah, I want to watch like a monster that like eats people's brains or something.
I want to see teens get terrorized. I want to see people get murdered. I want to see slashers and ghosts and spooks and fucking scary clowns. I don't know. All sorts of shit.
See. Yeah, no, I'm feeling the vibes. I mean, to be honest, I start feeling the vibes September 1st immediately. Like you get to, I mean, like that's me.
I watched a bunch of scary movies not too long ago, and I saw the last two movies I've seen in theaters have been horror movies. So
it's like people want to celebrate holidays like 2-3 months in advance, and the only one that I feel any compulsion to do that with is Halloween because it's just my favorite. And you know, you can kick off September pretty spooky. That's the same month 9/11 happened, so, and that's when the world kind of changed in a spooky way. So that's kind of like a horrifying sort of thing that you can think about to kick off.
It changed us all, as a nation.
Yeah,
and I will say I cannot absorb the candy corn part of it before about October 1st.
Okay, that's
fair. But the spooky movies you can really stretch out and languish in, and even honestly watch them through till Christmas, and then you get to watch Krampus, which is a great Christmas horror movie,
or Black Christmas,
which is a great.
That's another great one. Yeah, absolutely. So, pop on a horror movie today. I say, email us about your favorite ones.
I just realized that something. This is kind of a behind the scenes note on our podcast. Is like a lot of times the person who's not leading the episode has some bit like that they talk about before that, in this intro. And that means that it will never be linked to the actual episode topic in any real way. And like, basically, we continue to set up little challenges for ourselves as podcast hosts that make it so we have to work extra hard to have organic transitions. And I'm just realizing this 320 episodes into a podcast.
It's not always going to have the organic tissue connectivity that you want, but sometimes it does. But the thing is, Niall, I am here to lend an assist.
Okay, go ahead.
Because I think it would be pretty fair to say that we're into supernatural horror.
Good. I'm glad you added horror to that because if I remember correctly, you weren't super into supernatural when we tried to watch it.
The problem I had with the show is that it wasn't very good. But
that's my favorite part about it.
And you know what? The thing is, that's okay. That is totally fair. That is 100% valid. No, shade to people who
if you want to hear Kyle watch an entire season of Supernatural, subscribe to the Patreon.
Yeah, there is a whole ass season 1 me trying to watch Supernatural, and I think that show would have done gangbusters for me if I was in like high school.
Yeah,
but no longer. Anyways, we like supernatural horror.
Yes,
you might even say we like ghostly stories about ghosts, even demons. And Niall, I think this is also very fair, but you can correct me if I'm wrong here.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say that you're like a fan of music?
You know, I've been known to dabble. I've dipped my toe and my wick a little bit into the world of music.
Definitely dip your wick.
There definitely aren't like 5 guitars in the room that we record a podcast in.
Yeah, definitely. I forgot what I wrote in my notes here, and it says, it says in my notes, "Hey Niall, you like music, don't you? Is it safe to say you're a fan of music?" And then in parentheticals, he will agree to this.
Look, sometimes I get called the king of called shots, but I think that's making you climb those ranks.
Oh man,
we're doing competitive called shots in the It Gets Weird community, and there's ranking systems.
There is, and I honestly would love to see the community do more called shots. Because right now they're mostly trying to force me to see feet. After last week's episode, which I'm going to lay it out here. Don't appreciate it. But no, I think it's safe to say that here It Gets Weird, we enjoy music. And I also think it's safe to say that we enjoy a good haunting as well.
Yeah.
So Niall, consider this, okay?
Consider the following.
An interesting...
It's time we enter the spooky door.
Oh, right. I'm kicking the spooky door down tonight.
Yeah.
Think about this interesting old place in Wilder, Kentucky. That's the name of the town, by the way. Wilder, Kentucky. I believe population of 3,000 or something. Small place.
I'm glad you got that info in there. We don't always report the population of the towns we're talking about, and I think that is important context.
You're going to find, if you go back to a lot of my episodes about things happening in small towns, I do in fact look for the population. And I think that when you tell them it is a small town in Kentucky with this population, I feel like I don't have to do a lot of legwork to put an image in the mind of listeners of what that might look like. You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like you can be like, oh, sub 3,000, like about 3,000 in small town Kentucky. Yeah, I kind of know how that looks if you've been through Kentucky. Yeah, Wilder, Kentucky. This place that I'm about to talk to you about, it's known not only for being a country music venue, but also...
The entire town is a venue?
Sorry, the plate, not the town, but the place in the town.
Oh, shit. Yeah. I might know what we're talking about.
Do you really?
I've watched a Ghost Adventures episode about a haunted country music bar.
Oh, now that's interesting. Because you might know what I'm about to talk to you about.
Fantastic. I don't know a lot about it. I've watched most of, if not all of, an episode of Ghost Adventures about it. But most of my Ghost Adventures watching happens at like post midnight, usually like half awake or like maybe having imbibed a little bit of alcohol.
Definitely.
And being with a group of people. So I probably don't remember too much about it.
That's fair. Well, this is it's a country music venue. But also spooky, fucked up hauntings supposedly happen there.
Hell yeah.
Oh, and there's a portal to hell too. I kind of forgot to mention that in addition to music and hauntings, we're also big fans of hell.
Is it behind the chicken wire that it goes around the stage and like you like, because people throw like glass bottles and shit. This is kind of I'm kind of going Bob's Country Bunker here from Blues Brothers, but that's okay.
Oh yeah. That's how they position the band around the portal to hell, and they put a big sign around it, and the manager's always like, look, don't step into the portal to hell. It isn't wide enough to fit a person, but your leg goes in there, a demon grabs it.
I was gonna say, like, imagine someone being like bombing on stage, and instead of getting like the crook around their neck and dragged off stage, they should get dragged into hell.
Yeah, that's basically how this place works. So this week we're going to talk about the reportedly very haunted Bobby Mackey's Music World, the country music nightclub. Does that ring a bell?
I don't know. Every country bar is named like one of like 3 different things, and they all sound the same. So vaguely.
Well, Bobby Mackey himself is like an actual country singer.
Mm-hmm.
He was a guy who I think got his start like in the 70s. And so he's like an actual guy. So I guess he puts a little extra, I don't know whether celebrity is the right word.
Yeehaw is what he puts into it.
A little a little haw imbued into that thing. So I don't know whether, oh God, where the fuck was I going with all that? The point is, this this place is in an area in Kentucky that has an interesting and somewhat rambunctious history. So there's the history of like the place itself, and there's the surrounding area that also its history is kind of related to. It gets tied in to the context of why this place is haunted.
Okay.
Now, I also want it to be very clear. It seems that some of the genuine history gets mixed up with these like folkloric and unconfirmed stories. And I even saw that some of them, or at least some of it, is like Mackey himself. Although it's also, I think it's important to note that Mackey is like to this day a skeptic. He doesn't really believe the ghost stories.
Mm-hmm.
But his clientele and people who have worked there do. So there's actual history, which I did manage to hunt down real history, but we're going to get to the real history at the end because it's the fake history that matters for the ghosts.
Okay.
So, and I also think we can kind of blame the Travel Channel for a lot of this as well. So like partly like maybe drumming up some business and partly the Travel Channel's fault.
I would be very interested for someone to do a study on like the uptick in haunted locations and the like amount of reported hauntings after there started to be Travel Channel shows about them.
Yeah.
Because like I feel like there's this like whole cottage industry, much like we talked about for like conspiracy theories and ancient aliens and stuff, where like the fact that there's money to be made being a talking head on one of these shows or having a travel show where you go to these places causes an influx of new sightings, more stories, like old accounts being unearthed, all this kind of shit that leads to these places getting a higher profile because you can make money off of them.
Yeah, and I think so. The way I kind of look at it at this point is like a lot of the more notable locations that end up on shows like Ghost Adventures, it's like there was already sort of a thing that was there but I think it's also just like getting on a show, like a Travel Channel show that's making it.
Yeah.
Before you were probably like making a little bit of money off of this claiming this phenomenon, but after that I'm assuming that there is a brief increase.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that episode stops airing, it dips back down.
It's like the triple D effect, where restaurants will be on diners, drive-ins, and dives, and then get like people will travel the like circuit of diners, drive-ins, and dives locations across country. Like after they mostly like retired people who are like, we're just gonna get an RV and we're gonna travel to different places, and they'll stop anywhere with Guy Fieri's little like head put on the wall or whatever.
Yes. So what we're learning is that UFOs, ghosts, cryptids,
diners,
drive-ins, and dives. It is the same phenomena across the board, basically. Yeah. Like it's just like
it's the Warner Discovery brand.
Yes,
you know?
Yes, exactly.
Anyway,
so supposedly stories of hauntings, and this is coming from one of the there are so many different people who give tours at this place, like, and it's varying prices. But supposedly stories of hauntings on the property date all the way back to the 18th century. And this one is incredibly vague. The person basically just says like, oh yeah, back then there were slaves and slaves got like punished on the property. Mm-hmm. That's all they say about it. So I'm assuming what they're trying to imply is that there was violence against slaves, which that happened basically everywhere.
Yeah.
Not just this location. And it like deaths of slaves or something resulted in hauntings. But the thing is, when I look into stories online about the different like ghosts that are supposed to be there, there's nothing there about like, because like we've talked about, do you remember the Octagon House?
Yes.
That one specifically was like, oh, there was like a slaves quarter and all this stuff, and there were like specific stories that happened to slaves and like phenomena that was attributed to them. Nothing like that here.
It just like started the quote unquote bad energy that led to the hauntings, I guess.
And the thing is, I think that the reason that those stories don't really get talked about as much is when you compare the like it's bad PR.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like I feel like a historical location like the Octagon House doesn't have to worry about like, because that's just like, you know, a part of the history. Whereas like Bobby Mackey wants to like bring people in who want to like, you know, listen to country music and also like talk about ghosts or whatever. So I don't know if that's exactly why, but it is a thing that I like saw mentioned and I figured I should mention it as well. So, but yeah, beyond that one statement, I don't get much detail about the ghosts of slaves. So jumping forward to 1850, Mackey himself, or I guess on one of the websites that it's attributed to Mackey. I couldn't find the direct quote, but
it was a ghostwriter.
Well, either Mackey or a ghost. I don't know who wrote this, but in one place it gets attributed to Mackey. It just says that in 1850, the site where the club is at now, it was once a large slaughterhouse and meatpacking facility. And as a slaughterhouse, it supplied northwestern Kentucky and Cincinnati, Ohio.
And that would be before the jungle, right? So it's probably not a well-managed slaughterhouse that like, you know, there are a lot of cut off fingers and shit.
There's all
going on in there.
Oh yeah, it's a slurry of just parts.
It's honestly fucked up. This is whatever, but it's honestly fucked up to think about like meat processing plants pre USDA. Like I'm not someone that loves like government agencies in general, like but like the shenanigans and skullduggery around before there was any sort of like spotlight shed on the meatpacking industry is like it's fucked up.
It's probably not great.
Yeah, it's really weird to think about like the difference. Even and hey, meatpacking plants suck now. I'm not saying they're good, but they're inhumane in a very different way now. I find not totally. I this isn't super relevant, so I'll say it anyways. I find myself too, like whenever I think about stuff like that, or even when I just see raw meat, I am like inching ever closer to becoming vegetarian. This shit, like I don't know what happened to me in the last 2 years, but well, okay, I can think of one big thing. Yeah.
But that's
there's kind of a big it's gonna be like any graph where like you look at Ronald Reagan's presidency and it causes this big change in how the graph operates. The next one after that is gonna be either, well, there's probably 9/11, but like then the COVID pandemic is going to be the next like weird line break in any graph that you have to explain in future history classes.
Well, all I was gonna say is that I don't know. I'm inching closer to vegetarian just because I am. It's become harder to stomach the idea of just slaughtering animals. That I don't know. It's you know, and I don't have any plans to become like a militant person about it. It's just like on a personal level, I was like, man, I can't. I don't know if I can do it. My stomach turns. Anyways,
yeah, but your stomach turns over just about everything right now. So
that's also true. It's a combination of a lot of things, I guess. So, so it's said that at the lowest level basement area of this facility, a well was dug to, and you called it, this well was dug to contain waste, blood, and guts produced by slaughtered animals. Now, when you look into the actual history of the place,
just put it back in the earth.
Yeah, basically. What do you do when you fill it up? Like fucking. Well, there were 3 wells, so apparently it worked for a little while.
Yeah,
and they're like, we got to dig another fucking well down here, and by the time the 3rd well was filled up, the slaughterhouse was gone. So no, actually, in the history, like if you go onto websites and find these articles that aren't paranormal themed, you'll find that this place being a full-blown slaughterhouse is wildly exaggerated.
Really?
Yes. So the original building that was there functioned much more like a modern day butcher shop.
Okay.
So it wasn't like this facility where they were just like mass killing animals.
Yeah, they weren't processing raw live cattle. They were just like taking slabs of meat and cutting it up to sell to people. Okay.
So also the wells in the basement were actually built for distilling during Prohibition. So we'll come back to that.
They were distilling blood? No, I'm kidding.
Yes, actually. Hey, when you start hearing about more of the history of this, that might be the case. We'll see. They might
making blood
They
wine.
might have a blood whiskey down there.
Blood whiskey is the most like goth country thing that I can think of.
Yeah, I'll have one blisky on the rocks. So, yeah, we'll come back to the distillery part of it. In 1896, I just want to say that there's some graphic murder in this episode. I suppose I should more graphic than like typical with the hauntings.
Okay.
So in 1896, a small town girl from Greencastle, Indiana, was found.
Shit.
Shouts out! Yeah, we know where Greencastle is.
there.
Yeah, me too. What is it? DePaul is university or whatever? Or
sounds right.
Is that right? I can't remember.
I don't remember.
This small town girl from Greencastle, Indiana, was found dead less than 2 miles away from the location. And I would like to go again and say this is the story that you will hear from the ghost websites. This poor young lady wasn't just dead; she had been beheaded, and her head was nowhere to be found. The young girl's name was Pearl Bryan, and her story is tragic. Pearl had supposedly gotten pregnant, and her boyfriend, Scott Jackson, a student at the Ohio College of Dental Surgery, sent for her to meet him in Cincinnati so he could arrange for Pearl to have an abortion. The story goes that Jackson and his roommate, Alonzo Walling, would attempt to perform the abortion themselves.
Jesus.
However, during the process, something went terribly wrong.
Republican states.
Fucking Republican nation.
Yeah.
Something during them attempting to perform this abortion went terribly wrong, and Pearl was killed. And to cover up their involvement in her death, reading this story back after now knowing the more historical version of it, it's like, what the fuck? To cover up their involvement in her death, the two dental students would surgically remove her head and dump her body in a field, seemingly to try and prevent Pearl from being identified. So they couldn't bring it back to them.
Yeah, okay.
Supposedly this morbid trick would have been sufficient, except they had left Pearl's shoes on her feet, and she was identified by that. There was like a tag on her shoes.
Yeah, she wrote her name in her shoes or something.
Yeah, something like, yeah, she had her day of the week underwear with also her name sewed into it as well. Yeah. So, it's said that Walling and Jackson were hanged from the same gallows for their crime on the same day, and while Walling waited to die, he vowed to haunt the area forever. Now, I'm not sure where this next part of the story comes from, but some of the ghost sites claim that it was believed that Walling was a part of some sort of occult satanic cult that would practice dark rituals in the basement of the property.
Just a little bit of satanic panic thrown in there for good measure.
Hey, pocket the satanic panic bullshit because we'll come back to it. Stories that claim this whole satanic angle also tend to include a very weird tidbit, which is that this cult may have used Pearl's severed head in some sort of ritual, and that it may have possibly even been thrown down the well in the basement.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So what that's about, I don't know, but that's how, hey, if I'm just giving you the story that you're going to find when you look into this stuff casually.
They also say don't listen to Metallica and fucking if you play Nightmare on Elm Street backwards, it tells you to kill Christ.
Yeah, if you play, it's that Led Zeppelin record. If you play it backwards, it's like, oh, my sweet Satan or whatever. Yeah. Some places will claim that occult and satanic symbols were found at Bobby Mackey's, but there is no evidence of this whatsoever. There is no historical account to suggest that there was a satanic occult fucking around in the area. There's just nothing there.
Also, it's not Satanism, really. Anyway.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's stupid. But and here's the thing. We'll get to it. But the idea that there were satanic cults in the area doing this stuff and were involved with this murder all came from the Satanic Panic era.
Yeah.
It's the only place it was stated.
Reading that whole thing about the origins of the Satanic Panic, it just like broke something loose in my brain that now I'm just like, as soon as I hear there's rumors of a cult of a satanic cult in the area, I'm just like, fuck you and the horse you rode in on.
You can basically, anytime you read about stuff like that, you can pretty much always trace it back to satanic panic nonsense. And I think, unfortunately, it's lingering effects to this day.
Oh, 100%.
So,
what's Pizzagate but a new shade of fucking
yeah.
Anyway.
So in the early 20th century, the so-called quote-unquote slaughterhouse had been torn down and the area remained empty until the 1920s when a new building was built in the area to serve as a roadhouse. Go ahead.
Speaking of satanic cults, the satanic pentacle of Texas roadhouses.
Yes.
Come on.
Oh, yeah. Oh, sorry. I was giving you like carte blanche to make Roadhouse references.
Oh, sorry. I went straight to Texas Roadhouse. I bypassed Swayze at the fucking dinner rolls with on the peanut shells on the floor.
I really ought to, watch that movie someday for real, though.
Oh, it's really good.
I think
I think Vinegar Syndrome's doing a 4K of it soon.
Oh yeah, let's fucking
shouts out to boutique movie labels in general. I don't know why, but if you ever want to send me anything, feel free.
Let's see if we can get in good with Vinegar Syndrome or something.
I love Shout Factory. I love fucking Criterion. I don't give a shit.
So yeah, this Roadhouse, right? It would have a number of different owners and names over the years.
Now, if you tell me someone got their throat ripped out at this Roadhouse, then maybe I could believe it. It would not be cult related. It would be because you got the philosophy major bouncer uncentered. By kidnapping people.
Is that a thing that happens in Roadhouse?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
he fucking like that's why he moved on from where he was originally, is because he in a very over the top bar fight that he was trying to break up as the cooler, he ripped a guy's throat out.
Wow, I would love to hear his philosophy about ripping throats. Yeah. Yeah, a number of different people would own this place, and it would serve for a lot of illicit fun over the decades. So this would be, gambling, drinking, prostitution, stuff like that. Pinball, which is the most sinful of vices.
I do. That's one of my favorite little things, is that pinball was considered gambling. So
was it?
Yeah. Back when gambling was outlawed in certain places, you couldn't play pinball.
What the fuck? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's bizarre. What the fuck about that is gambling?
I think it was mainly due to the fact that a lot of the companies that made various betting stuff also made pinball machines. So it was a matter of the companies that made them
they just slapped the company as opposed to the actual
kind
concept.
of, yeah.
That's super weird. I don't understand.
I'm not 100% certain on that, but it's funny looking back. I didn't realize it until I started hearing about that kind of stuff in various movies and podcasts.
I had no idea. So at this place during Prohibition, it was a speakeasy, of course.
Yeah.
Kind of expected, just based off of how I've set this up so far. And that's where all the distillery wells come from.
Mm-hmm.
But in 1933, with the end of Prohibition, the place was bought by a guy named E.A. Buck Brady. And he took it over and named the place the Primrose. And that when he owned the place, it was a casino. A successful one, too. Now, the problem with being a successful casino kind of in this era and in this area is that it caught the attention of some Cincinnati mobsters.
Ooh, okay.
And the mobsters wanted in. They wanted in on this gambling racket and the money that could be made there. But Brady refused to sell the place to them. Now, when Brady did that, things did not go well.
Yeah,
as they tend to go with mobsters. And so violence escalated to the point where there was fighting and threats being made to customers in the parking lot. And then finally, Buck drew a gun on one of the mobsters named Albert Red Masterson. And he was charged with attempted murder and ended up just completely leaving the casino business behind in 1946.
Huh. Okay.
Now, so that was one of its eras, was where there was a lot of gambling there. But on some sites, and this is some unconfirmed shit, there is an extra embellishment on this Buck Brady story. They make it sound as if the mobsters in the area managed to actually force Brady out. instead of him just like basically, getting in trouble with the law.
Mm-hmm.
They force him out of ownership of the place, and in a moment of severe distress over this, supposedly Brady shot and killed himself.
Damn.
Which, again, I saw that on one place that was trying to sell me tour tickets to the location.
That sounds like we need a named ghost.
We need a ghost there, and you better believe he is a ghost there.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is totally...
I don't, but I believe that they want me to think that.
Right. So yeah, totally unconfirmed, but apparently this hostile takeover made the place a refuge for the mob ever since. Now, the building would then reopen, and it would call itself the Latin Quarter, and this is in the 1950s. And there was a dancer there, a dance hall girl, and also daughter of the nightclub's owner. Her name was Joanna. Joanna Jules is how a lot of the stories refer to her. And she was said to wear this rose-scented perfume. Now, while working there, Joanna fell in love with a singer named Robert Randall. Robert would come and perform at the Latin Quarter. And while having her sort of fling with this Randall guy, she got pregnant.
As you do.
Running theme with the hauntings here, I feel. She was planning on running away with the singer, and they're both very young. They're in their, I think, early 20s. But her father disapproved of all of this, forbid her from having this romance with Randall. And after finding out that she had been impregnated by him, used his connections with the criminal world, the mobsters, to have Robert Randall killed.
Jesus. Okay.
And when Joanna finds this out, she manages to poison her own father, then go down in the basement and take her own life by poisoning.
Little Romeo and Juliet action, but
yeah,
with some father death. I don't know. It's not quite Romeo and Juliet, but as soon as you started bringing poison into it, that's where my mind went.
Yeah, well, of course, yeah. It's that's a classic poisoning story, right?
Yeah.
Everybody goes, you say like, hey, have you read Romeo and Juliet? And people are always like, oh, the poison
Is
story,
that the one with
right?
the
That's
poison?
the poison one,
yeah.
Right. Yeah, classic poisoning story. Now, here's another fun little thing about this story. People really love to point out that Bobby Mackey, his real full name is Robert Randall Mackey.
Okay.
And the guy that this Joanna Jules fell in love with was Robert Randall. And so sometimes what tour guides and stories online will bring up is like, is Joanna still there because she has confused Bobby Mackey with her lover somehow?
Okay. All right.
Which is, on the face of it, it's like, my God, they have the same name.
Yeah.
But then you think about it for 1 second, it's like, that's fucking stupid.
Yeah, like I'm assuming since the place is called Bobby Mackey's, I'm assuming he doesn't go by Robert Randall Mackey much. So it's like is the ghost looking at his fucking driver's license
or
his
birth certificate? Or is it that ghosts just operate on an intuitive plane?
Okay.
On a different level of understanding. They're somehow enmeshed with our reality. And the reality of Bobby Mackey is his name is Robert Randall Mackey.
And by reality, you mean full legal name.
Yeah, exactly. You're not real until you have that full legal name, by the way.
Yeah, it's like how in magic stuff, like your true name is like a powerful thing.
Exactly.
On the spirit realm, they can sense your real name, and that's what led to the confusion.
Exactly.
Because the Robert Randall that she was into liked to mack on her.
Oh.
So that's where the Mackey thing. So she just thinks that it's Robert Randall trying to mack with her.
Macking on some jewels?
Yeah. Oh, God.
Sorry.
Last week it was sucking on toes. This week it's macking on jewels.
So a poem can be found written into the wall of the place, supposedly written by Joanna herself before her suicide. Niall, it reads, quote, "My love is deep as the sea that flows forever. You or me, where will it end? I tell you never. My love is as bright as the sun that shines forever. You ask me when will it end? It tells you never. The world may disappear like a castle of sand, but I will be standing here with my heart in my hand. My love, I love you so much. Now and forever, you ask me, when will it end? I tell you never. She etched that into her wall before she fucking drank the tasty poison. I'm assuming poison's kind of tasty.
I think it's usually pretty sour, but or bitter. But
you could like punch it up.
Yeah, you could make it into a nice cocktail.
So
it's like a fucking like an Aperol spritz type shit.
Yeah, absolutely. Now here's the thing about that quote unquote poem. It's a very common set of lyrics that came from a song in like 1951.
Yeah. It sounds like a refrain from some just kind of basic love song.
Yeah. So celebrities and entertainers such as Frank Sinatra and the Rat Pack would also tour through the area. What with its mobster culture,
I was going to say mob influence still is around.
Yeah. I was listening to a podcast episode about Frank Sinatra, specifically his tour through Australia, and how fucked up it was, and how insane Frank Sinatra is. Man, what a crazy motherfucker that Frank Sinatra is. Not a good man.
Yeah, I think you can. I think that's safe to say. Old Blue Eyes, maybe.
He's fucked up. It's kind of crazy. It made some good songs, though, I guess. Whatever.
Yeah, fine. I like In the Wee Small Hours. It's a good album.
So, they would kind of go through the area. The Roadhouse and the surrounding area would kind of go on like this. Like at one point, it was a biker pub. And there was just like rowdy fucking people coming through this place.
Yeah, any kind of fringe part of society seems to have just taken this place over.
Mobsters, bikers. It's really quite the place. Yeah. So
it turned into a bar with a goth night for a while. Now it just does emo nights. I
wish it did either of those things.
Yeah.
Do you know how badly I would want to go to an emo/goth night at a haunted, like, country music singers, weird ass nightclub?
If you take away one of those qualifiers, I'm guessing there's a haunted bar somewhere in America that holds emo nights.
Yeah, I mean, I would love that.
It's a very popular thing right now. We'd have to do some research, but we might be able to make that happen.
Dude, Black as Night, Undead. Yeah. That would be so sick.
No, you're more likely to hear Fall Out Boy than like Moss Icon there, but it's fine.
But Goth Night, I feel like mostly people could like, they would actually get that right.
Yeah.
So it would kind of go on like this until 1978, when a number of fatal shootings would lead to the local authorities shutting the place down. Later on that same year, country singer Bobby Mackey would come across the place, and supposedly he instantly fell in love with it, I guess. And he would then purchase it to turn it into a music hall and tavern, which is essentially the same as it is today. It goes on ever since as this entertainment, music, bar, whatever.
Okay.
Now, given the violence, tragedy, and death that occurred at this place, it would be a veritable hot pot of supernatural energy, if you believe that sort of thing, right? However, there were no ghost stories at this place until Mackey purchased it.
Fair. I was trying to find a way to come up with like the mob somehow still gets 10% of all the ghosts and spooks in the old place.
I mean, that could be true.
But yeah, no, you would okay. This is a thing that I think that is interesting to look at, is like when the ghost stories started coming about, because you would think that through all this tumultuous history that you would hear stuff like there'd be local legends about this place that predate Bobby Mackey. But you're saying that most of the ghost stories and haunting stuff really only starts in what he bought in the 1970s?
Yeah, late 70s.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. So the stories we have a pretty good idea of how they started.
Fair.
But I mean, but basically, I think a lot of the reason why they didn't start until then as well is just because a lot of the stories that I've referenced are like either completely false.
Yeah.
There's just nothing to back them up, or they're things that have happened elsewhere, but are kind of being taken in to the canon.
Okay.
Even though they're not really related to the place at all.
I feel like that's pretty common.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Mackey himself, like I said, he claims to be a skeptic. Occasionally he's cited as a guy who just like was like, I've heard stories or whatever. He was told stories.
Okay.
This is what we know about it, is he was kind of fed these stories. But yeah, after he purchased the place, Bobby Mackey's Music World, very fun title. It, I guess, just pretty much immediately began getting bombarded with supernatural shit.
Huh.
There was supposedly, this is before the place has even opened. He purchases it, and as they're kind of moving in there, intense, just unexplained phenomena starts happening. One of the first was this accident in which his own wife, Bobby Mackey's wife, claims to have been clawed at and pushed down the stairs by a malevolent, unseen force.
Okay.
Contractors, people working on the place while they were kind of like sprucing it up to prepare it for opening, supposedly also reported a manner of different paranormal activities. This would be things like moving objects on their own, anomalous noises, but in the more terrifying cases, people claim that they were pushed, slapped, punched, or scratched by nothing.
Okay, that would be scary to experience, but it just hit me like the concept of a ghost just randomly just like slapping you is kind of one of the funnier things that can happen.
We established how funny that concept is in the Borley Rectory episode.
Okay,
because one of the stories there was the girl in bed getting fucking slapped out of nowhere by an invisible hand. So like it is a thing. It's like you're talking about all this sinister stuff, but like just like the very sudden, like picture the smacking noise and just how it would be alarming, but also be like, did this spirit just fucking slap me?
Yeah, like don't get me wrong, being scratched, being hit, all of these things, it would be scary. But the concept of just like a ghost just like slapping you across, like especially if it like fucking spanked you, it's kind of funny. Even though if it happened to me, it would probably be terrifying.
It's scary, but if a ghost,
but with like a little bit of distance, it's funny.
Yeah, and if it's a spank, well, kind of in different territory there, huh?
What was the post that was going around today? That was like there are two types of people: those who want to fuck a ghost and those who don't. And it's just like, that is the thing.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's no shame in wanting to fuck or be fucked by a ghost, I think.
Yeah.
And you know what can really start you down that path is if the ghost gives you a big old smack on the rear.
Yeah.
So, apparently workers would even like, after experiencing paranormal events, they would just like not come back. They would just refuse to work.
Fair. They probably didn't get paid enough to deal with that shit. I'll just say that.
Yeah. Now, Mackey was kind of like, I guess, hoping things would chill out from there. Just because, they're opening, he wants business to be good. And articles are like, the paranormal stories just would be bad for business. And I don't know why anybody would even try to make that claim.
I feel like you have to. I feel like you have to be like, oh, we can't let this get out, because otherwise it feels like you're playing into it too much, because you want to be someone in the whole chain of events has to be the skeptic. Otherwise people will be like, oh, they're just cashing in.
Sure.
But if you deny it and you're like, oh, that we didn't want these things to get out because it'd be bad for business.
Yeah.
Then it sounds like it's more likely that they're real and you get people coming in.
Yes.
Also,
now
it's as effective as a ladies' night for a bar.
Oh, and by the way, when I looked at their Twitter, the last thing that they had posted were images from ladies' night.
Fantastic.
Or at least I think it was ladies' night. It was a bunch of women. I didn't like look too close into it, but they do have a Twitter, and it was a bunch of women in t-shirts, and the t-shirts all said 4 boobs are better than 2. And I was like trying to parse that, and I was like, well, you're not wrong, but like I don't know what this is meant to imply. So I don't know what that's about.
Okay.
So
right.
Now here's the thing. Here's the juicy bit.
What does that?
I don't know.
I cannot get sidetracked by that.
My best guess is that it meant there were 2 women that the night was focused on. 2 women who both have a pair that they can combine.
Maybe
into
it's
4.
like if you
I don't know,
like groups, like 2 groups, like groups of 2 women get in free or some shit, or like if you come with a friend you get something extra. I
have no idea. Or maybe there's a 4-boobed lady who frequents the place. One of the things, so I was actually trying to pull up Yelp before the show, which was not working for some reason because
that's what you were trying
there's
to do.
a lot of Yelp reviews for the place, and some of them are like talking shit. And one of the things that I ran into about this place is like, yeah, they like to make money off of the ghost tours, but do not stay for anything else if you're like an out-of-towner, because this is a local place and they don't like the out-of-towners.
Oh, okay.
Which is it's a very weird vibe. The place seems like a weird vibe, but like, so there's like 5-star reviews that are all just like great drinks, great, and then it's like review from a guy from Florida, like they were very unhappy. There was like I guess one of the reviews was like a woman who was like out there with her friend, and they were on the ghost tour, and her friend, I guess, like went into a trance and like went into another room and was acting all weird.
Yeah.
And they were like, get her the fuck out of here right now, or we'll kick you out.
Yeah, I mean, look, if I'm trying to just like have my local bar that I have my clientele and everything, and some random woman comes in and claims to be going into a trance talking to ghosts, I probably would not want her in there either.
But you'd also think that a place like this would be like, you know what? Fair enough. We did build it up as such.
I guess they did kind of.
They kind of baited it. So
hey, if you build it, they will come.
Exactly.
And in that case, it's not a ghost. It's not playing catch with your ghost dad.
That's right.
It's a woman going into a trance while you're trying to make a batch of mojitos.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
This place wouldn't have fucking fresh mint. What am I talking about? They're opening up a fucking can of
Miller High Life or whatever. Yeah. So one of the more famous stories at this place has to do with a 20-year-old man named Carl Lawson. And Lawson was working at the place to clean and paint it and prep it for this opening, and he would later move into the attic of the building, basically treating it as an apartment. And he would act as a permanent caretaker for the place while he was living there. Now, pretty much immediately, Lawson would start reporting being basically tormented by supernatural phenomena at the bar. He claims that he was actively being attacked and even possessed by demons.
Jesus.
That he personally believed were crawling out through the slaughterhouse well in the basement, and that is where people get the idea of that location being a portal to hell.
So where in this tavern does this well? Where is it?
It's in the basement.
No,
I don't.
Is it like, okay? So you have to go down to the basement to access where?
Yeah, you have to go downstairs.
Just under something.
No, it's. I think that you can like visit it. Like one of the, I read that like one of the things that they'll do is like bar goer, like people there, they will charge them $10 to go downstairs to see the hole that the demons supposedly crawl out of.
Okay. How much do I have to pay to take a piss in it?
A bit more than $10, I'm gonna guess.
Fair.
The club then opens, and Lawson continues to live basically in its attic. But he was like convinced that the place needed to be cleansed of evil, and Mackey was not super into this guy like going out and talking to people about his supernatural experiences. But despite his best efforts, people at the club would begin to describe their own supernatural experiences and report paranormal things happening to them. So people would report things like objects moving of their own accord, electronics and lights would turn on or off by themselves. They would see shadowy apparitions out of the corner of their eyes. And lots of people also claim that they would be overcome by a sense of pure dread and evil that would just suddenly descend upon them. And some people, in the rarer cases, would also claim to have been physically attacked by some invisible entity. Typically, this would be getting pushed downstairs or just shoved around. And the closer you are, supposedly the closer you are to the basement, the closer you are to the well, the more likely it is that you will experience one of the more violent phenomena.
Makes sense. Okay. So that's kind of the hub for everything.
Yeah,
and
it is the epicenter of the paranormal violence.
So then why is the guy that's living in the fucking attic having so much trouble?
I mean, he comes down from the attic.
Yeah, fair.
Like, he's the caretaker.
I guess I didn't say specifically that he was having those things in the attic. It was
Right.
it could be while he was out doing.
Yeah, he's out doing stuff. Yeah,
fair enough. I just like it was always like the attic, and that seemed like the furthest point away from the fucking well.
Now I have a short list here of phenomena that has been reported about Bobby Mackey's music world. This comes from the Travel Channel website of all places. So some still believe the building's basement holds the gateway to a portal of hell itself. Stairs near the well in the old slaughterhouse have been deemed, quote, the stairs that lead to nowhere. Phantom footsteps can often be heard on these stairs. I don't think they actually lead to nowhere.
Yeah, it's just it's a spooky name because it's on the way to the portal.
Right,
to hell.
right.
Okay.
Some believe that spirits can't cross flowing water, so the rare northern current of the Licking River nearby may be keeping the dark forces trapped inside the building. They can't leave. I'd actually never heard that before.
Really?
That spirits can't cross water?
Yeah. Like demons and stuff, yeah.
That's a new one for me.
That's a superstition.
Oh, okay.
So you'd always like if you're being chased by something, you go across the river.
We of course also apparently the caretaker Lawson not only claimed to be possessed at one point, but he also had an exorcism while he was there, supposedly.
Okay. Did he do this himself, or did he bring in somebody? I guess you can't do an exorcism yourself. You have to have an exorcist.
It was performed in the club by
Church.
a minister.
Yeah. Okay.
A patron claims to have experienced suffocating heat, a flying trash can, and a man with a handlebar mustache repeating "Die game, die game," Latin for dying well, dying good in the men's restroom. Die Bart, die Bart.
Yeah.
The So, Bobby's wife claims to have been overcome by the scent of roses in the basement, grabbed around the waist, picked up, thrown down, and pushed downstairs by force.
And Rose Perfume was the woman who...
That was Johanna.
Yep.
And pushed by a force that resembled sketches of Alonzo Walling screaming, "Get out, get out." And
okay. That's weird.
Yeah.
The force resembled... So they saw like an apparition that pushed them? Not just like an unseen force they said felt like Alonzo?
I'm telling you exactly how it's been written.
Hey, Travel Channel, clean up your shit.
She supposedly his wife refuses to set foot in the club anymore. Bobby Mackey claims not to be a believer, but he did write a song entitled Joanna about the young girl who committed suicide in the basement in the 1950s. Bobby Mackey's friend Doug Hensley wrote a book titled Hell's Gate, which connects the events of the past with the hauntings of the present.
Yeah, okay.
So
makes sense.
Doug Hensley is one of the main perpetrators for making this place what it is. Historic photos of Pearl Bryan match witnesses' descriptions of a headless ghost dressed in turn-of-the-century clothing, and photos of Buck Brady also match descriptions of often-seen ghosts.
Okay, so we straight up have a fucking headless horseman going on in here.
Except it's a headless woman, and...
Fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the headless. Okay.
Hot spots in the club include the spotlight room and catwalk over the stage, the well in the basement, of course, the old China room, and the platform area near the kitchen. People have also claimed to see ghosts in the big pitted mirror in the main room. The club manager claims that on several occasions, she would go through the club and make sure everything was turned off and closed down for the night. Then, hours later, she'd find that the bar lights were on, the front doors were unlocked, and the jukebox would be playing the anniversary waltz, even though the jukebox was still unplugged and did contain that song. Weird. Written weird?
Yeah.
Another club employee has seen a dark, very angry man behind the bar and a spirit who called herself Joanna. Now, I think they mean dark as in like supernatural, like entity dark, not you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because they're saying that it's Joanna. She would often speak to the club employee and leave the scent of roses in her wake, which is her perfume.
Right.
So all of this shit I just described supposedly continues to this day. Now here's a fun little side story that I found very interesting. This is an article in the Beaver County Times, dated October 24th, 1993.
Fantastic.
The article is titled "Ghost Punched Me, Man Says." So here's what it says. A mystery man named J.R. Costigan says he was punched by a ghost in his favorite haunt. They really go off on one in this article, by the way. Costigan sued Bobby Mackey's Music World in the small claims court on September 29th, claiming a ghost punched and kicked him while he was in the restroom of the country music bar in Wilder. He sought $1,000 in damages.
Didn't they say, wasn't there something on the Travel Channel about a guy, about like a handlebar mustache guy in the bathroom, the die guy?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just wondering if it's the same guy.
Costigan claimed the dark-haired apparition appeared after he walked around daring the ghost, a legend at the club, to show itself. Jesus Christ. The spook fled after the attack. The club's lawyer, Robert Lotz, took the case in good spirit.
Someone had fun writing this.
That's what I'm saying.
Jesus.
He filed a motion in verse, asking that the lawsuit be dismissed, pointing out that it would be hard to get the fight's only other witness in court. To quote the lawyer, "But souls departed eschewing repose proved difficult for us lawyers to depose. And the sheriff will greet with crude demeanor my request to serve a spook subpoena."
But because of the accent, it was a spook subpoena.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
So
just for the rhyme, you know.
So because of this paranormal reputation, Music World has also been host to a ton of paranormal investigations, both professional and amateur, and tours. Tons and tons of tours come through. There's also been the location was featured on a number of notable ghost hunting television shows, but most notably on YouTube, Buzzfeed Unsolved, which I actually kind of enjoy those, if you've ever seen those.
Yeah, I've seen a couple of them.
They're pretty fun. And then it's like Ghost Adventures, but like not taking it seriously at all. Like one person takes it seriously and the other person's just a complete skeptic, and I like that dynamic. But it was also featured on multiple Travel Channel shows over the years, like Ghost Adventures, and apparently a show that's just called Portals to Hell. Oh. So
how many episodes can that run?
I really genuinely don't know.
Fair.
During the Ghost Adventures investigation into into Bobby Mackey's Music World, Zach Bagans claims to have actually made communications with the murder victim Pearl Bryan. And he also claims to have been possessed by a demon while he was looking around in the basement where the well from hell is. He was, I guess, incredibly convinced that shit was evil and demonic and full of ghosts there, that he had an exorcism carried out on him. And he claims that the demonic entity that lives in this place physically assaulted him and left claw marks across his chest.
Damn.
It was a very successful episode, so successful that they had a follow-up episode called Return to Bobby Mackey's in 2010. Lots of people will make a big these investigators will make a big deal about negative energy in the basement, and there is speculation by the ghostly inclined that it is some sort of portal or vortex that channels the forces of evil, these paranormal forces, and that's why it is the way that it is. This also comes from the very popular book that I mentioned before, Hell's Gate: Terror at Bobby Mackey's World by Bobby Mackey's friend Douglas Hensley.
I hope that's how it's written on the cover.
I know. The title of the book is Hell's Gate: Terror at Bobby Mackey's Music World.
Yeah.
But you can also pretend it was the other way as well.
Yeah.
So the place, of course, like I said, it has fully embraced the paranormal attention to the point where, and I wonder if the article that I read earlier has anything to do with this, there is a sign at the front of the establishment that reads, quote, "Warning to our patrons, this establishment is purported to be haunted. Management is not responsible and cannot be held liable for any actions of any ghosts/spirits on these premises."
I'm sure that saves them a lot of money and just like petty shit.
Yeah,
like
dumb bullshit, like I mentioned.
People losing stuff and everything. You can just blame it on ghosts.
Yeah. Beyond just like me seeing their Twitter feed about
4 boobs are better than 2.
Yeah, for like that shit. About 6 months ago, I guess 3 people were shot outside of Bobby Mackey's Music World.
Shit. Okay.
So it's still a fun area if you want to go check it out.
Yeah, that's dark. Okay.
So I don't know if they died. I didn't read too much into it. I was just like, well, okay, sure. So yeah, stories continue to this day, but here is the problem. most of the legendary stories about this place simply do not stack up to reality.
Okay.
Not only are there no records to corroborate a lot of these stories, it's all there. Pearl Bryan is basically murder, stolen valor.
Okay.
A number of folks interested in the history of this area in Kentucky have a bone to pick with that story, and I got to go through these pretty quick. So in the article, Haunted History of Bobby Mackey's Music World Fails to Stand Up to Scrutiny, written by M. Cadwell and S. A. Hill, published online at Doubtful News, you can learn some interesting facts about this case. So here's what they say about Pearl Bryan. The autopsy report showed that Bryan had defensive wounds on her hands and arms, indicating that she was alive at the time immediately before her head had been completely severed, and that she had been 4.5 to 5 months pregnant. A single set of male footprints were found leading up a hill towards the Covington Reservoir, where authorities found an abandoned cistern covered by a large rock with a bloody handprint on it. The cistern was thoroughly inspected and found to be empty. Detectives followed the footsteps that stopped at the edge of the reservoir. Scott Jackson was convicted of murdering Bryan. After Bryan's body was identified, her relationship to Jackson and an accomplice, Alonzo Walling, was uncovered. Apparently, Scott Jackson was the father of her unborn child and wanted Bryan to get an abortion. After several botched abortions later, he allegedly forced her to ingest 14 grams of cocaine, which was found in her stomach during the autopsy, which did not kill her. He then slashed her throat and decapitated her. Jackson, upon interrogation, had accused Walling of the murder. Walling was described as being very impressionable and slow-minded. Therefore, he most likely did not have the mental capacity to plan and undertake the murder. Walling, upon interrogation, accused Jackson of being her killer. Both were found guilty and sentenced to death by hanging. One news clipping states that Jackson admitted the murder the night before he was hanged and wrote out a statement saying that Walling was innocent of Bryan's murder and that he was the only perpetrator. However, at the gallows, when asked for his last statement, Jackson stated, quote, "I have only this to say, that I am not guilty of the crime for which I am now compelled to pay the penalty of my life." It is alleged in the current legends that Alonzo Walling's last words were that he would haunt the location forever. However, Walling expected to be vindicated by Jackson. Quote, "That man can save me if he will. I die an innocent man. I was not there when she was killed." All news reports, statements made by Jackson and Walling, as well as the court documents, show that the crime scene was not Bobby Mackey's site, but over 4 miles away. The route taken by the party was most likely devised based upon avoidance of toll booth authorities. Therefore, they may have passed the building that night, but there is no indication they stopped there.
Makes sense. Yeah. It didn't take place at all there.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
It goes on. So the evidence of the scene indicated there was only a single person involved. Basically, her boyfriend killed her.
Yeah.
Just him. And a lot of the stories spread. So the association between the murder and the mention of a satanic cult is a relatively recent idea. Cadwell was able to speak to a woman who was in high school in 1977 in Wilder, Kentucky, who stated that she remembered learning about the Pearl Bryan murder in history class. There was no mention of occult activity or satanic ritual associated with it at the time. She recalled that those rumors did not start until after the establishment became Bobby Mackey's Music World in 1978. Furthermore, no news reports of that time made mention of a satanic or occult association, which would have been expected for such sensational details. The lack of support in court the lack of support in court documents and testimonies of all involved exponentially weakens the idea that Jackson and Walling were part of a secret satanic cult. The occult angle may have originated with Carl Lawson, the former caretaker of Bobby Mackey's, who claimed that he was demonically possessed. He was the one who informed Bobby Mackey that Pearl Bryan was murdered as part of a satanic ritual and had her head thrown in a well as a sacrifice. And his story is recounted in the 2005 book, Hell's Gate, Terror at Bobby Mackey's Music World by Douglas Hensley.
Fantastic. So this guy out of nowhere was just like, oh, we had a satanic ritual in the place, and that's what caused all of it, and I got possessed by a demon, and put me in your book, please.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
What I also really love about the facts from this article is that in the early days of the venue, so like late 1978, Lawson, I guess, would just tell Bobby Mackey these stories.
Mm-hmm.
And it notes here that Mackey did not care for them.
Fair.
So...
hey, if I just bought a new place and someone was like, there were satanic rituals here, I'd be like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
No, don't.
Unfortunately, Lawson did pass away on January 26, 2012, and was not available for comment for this particular article. That is one of the few that I found was digging up the full details of everything.
Trying to actually debunk what is to be debunked.
You can just straight up just debunk this by a lot of the details in this story by just going to the Campbell County Historical and Genealogical Society, who has stuff on display and stories about this and documents on it, and even newspaper clippings on the situation. And their official stance at the Historical and Genealogical Society is that this woman's unfortunate demise is now subject to continual exploitation. So,
okay,
even in death.
Yeah.
Much of the same can actually be said about the ghost of Joanna. Tour guides will tell you the tale I related before of this woman, Joanna Jules, who committed suicide. However, there is no record of any Joanna Jules. There is evidence that there was a woman named Joanna that had committed suicide by poisoning, but her name was Joanna Reagan, and she was miles away from the establishment when it happened. It was in 1914, which is decades too early. And well before the place was even a speakeasy. So, and
no
there's
Randall, whatever. No.
She was a housewife. There was nothing there. And so they have copies of her death certificate and everything. We actually know who this person is.
So yet again, stolen valor.
Yes. So that is Bobby Mackey's music world.
Probably not actually a portal to hell.
Probably not. It'd be fun to go.
If they don't like out-of-towners, I don't think I could fit in there.
The problem, it would be fun to go if I didn't have to mingle with patrons.
Yeah, maybe just for a ghost tour and then we leave.
We need to get decent enough status to be able to be can we spend the night at these places without anybody else there? Just us and a couple friends. That would be fun. I would love to go to one of these haunted places.
That would be cool.
I actually did run into a website that offered tours, and some of them were in locations in Indiana, and I thought, man, we could just pop on over to an asylum, spend the night, $100-some bucks. I'm in.
Fair enough.
So, Niall, are you ready for a big question?
I've been ready for... Actually, I was about to I have to edit this down, so I'm not going to give you a time code.
Okay.
Yeah. I was born ready.
Yeah, so Niall, what music genre do you think will usher in the next big haunted nightclub?
I don't know if this is the actual answer, but it would be the coolest answer.
Yeah.
I want to see a hyperpop haunting.
Oh, Jesus.
Because there's such just a chaotic energy to it in general. It's such a just high energy, strange genre for kind of a niche audience. I feel like hyper pop born ghosts would be fascinating and have an entirely different energy than a lot of the old sad country ghosts and blues ghosts. Definitely.
Yeah, it's funny because I guess the energy of the ghost, although that would just maybe it's like the ghosts would do a lot of the same actions that I just described in the episode, but way faster.
Yeah.
They're slapping you much more quickly and things like that.
Instead of just one big slap, it's those videos of people that are split up when they're slapping their dog's belly. Or just slap.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So maybe they won't hurt you with the slap. They'll just hit you with the super fast one. I actually had a similar answer, kind of. I was thinking it would be kind of cool if there was a nightclub that was doing a lot of EDM.
Okay.
A lot
of bass-heavy ghosts.
Sorry, IDM, if you'll allow me.
So more Aphex Twin.
Yeah, Aphex Twin style stuff. Because I was just thinking, how Aphex Twin would hide fucked up shit in the waveforms and whatnot.
Yeah.
That has to be cursed with all kinds of demonic energy. So I imagine we're gonna get nightclub demons that kind of
I'm going to transcribe the works of Aleister Crowley into the metadata and like spectrograms of my upcoming album.
Exactly. So you basically read my mind with that one. We're gonna summon demons, and we're gonna use fucking the unpronounceable album, whatever drug or wait, that's an artist. What am I thinking of?
No, Drux is
an artist, right?
No, that's
or is that the album? Okay, Drux. I'm sorry. I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm thinking of
I forget how it's spelled, but I'm pretty sure that's an album.
The U-Zip or whatever. U-Zip or I actually don't. You know what?
I think you're it's been a little while since you've re-upped your Aphex Twin credentials.
I haven't been listening to a lot of IDM lately, and I'm struggling to like pull references. But people out there who know what I'm talking about,
some ethereal Boards of Canada ghosts.
yeah, exactly. Just summon some demons that are appropriate for the venue, I guess. Because I don't think
Chopped and Screwed New Hobbies ghosts.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
There you go.
Thank you. Yeah. So this is gonna be a demon that shows up with like a pacifier that has like ecstasy in it or whatever. Or whatever it is those people do. I guess that's more of a raver thing.
Yeah, that's a little less IDM. You keep pulling the trappings of EDM.
It's all electronic music, which, as we all know, is all the same shit.
The IDM EDM divide is stupid anyway, because it's just a pretentious thing to make people feel smart.
Yeah,
it's not actually like So
everybody enjoy your stupid little electronic music album.
Yeah.
Okay. Everybody just have fun with it.
Just the hellish world of Merzbow ghosts.
Ooh, yeah. Now summoning demons at the noise show. That's
White
how you.
Hills.
Yeah, you're gonna fuck that place up.
Oh man,
it'd be fun though.
Yeah.
Well, what do you think? Do you think we can take care of some business now?
Ska ghosts. Yeah.
Ooh.
No. Let's go and take care of some business. So if you want to follow us, you can follow us on Twitter at IGW Podcast.
You can follow us on Facebook.com/itgetsweirdpodcast.
What happened when the place was haunted by ska ghosts? They saw some glasses and they just picked them up. Pick it up.
Yeah, they well, let me tell you the kind of ghosts that were showing up at the ska demon summoning. They were some rude boys.
This is horrible. Facebook? No,
I did.
You said Facebook. Okay, so if you want to find us, we're on all major podcast platforms: Stitcher, Google Play, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. If you listen to podcasts somewhere, look up It Gets Weird, and we're probably there.
Email us at itgetsweirdpodcast@gmail.com. What genre do you think would bring out the best ghosts and demons? Why is it jungle? Tell us about it, please. I would love to hear your theories. Patreon.com/itgetsweird.
Yeah, ghosts.
There you go. Absolutely.
I'm just going to keep interrupting you.
We have a $2 tier and a $5 tier. At the $2 tier, you're getting It Gets Weird TV every other week, where we just wrapped up Gravity Falls. And we're going to open some voting on the next show that we watch. So people can help pick what weird television show we watch and review for the show. At the $5 tier, you get access to It Gets Weird TV, plus in the off weeks of It Gets Weird TV, another bonus show. We do all kinds of stuff there. We watch movies. Niall has a show. I have a show. We do all kinds of stuff there. So you're getting bonus content every single week at the $5 tier. Whether you donate to the $2 tier or the $5 tier, you get access to our main show 2 days early on Friday instead of Sunday, and you get access to our Discord where we're hanging out and currently making me talk about feet too much. We also have a $1 tier that's just a tip. You don't get anything out of it except the satisfaction of sending $1 to your favorite podcast about all this weird bullshit. If you can't donate, please tell your friends, tell your enemies, tell your congressman all about It Gets Weird podcast.
Yes. Thank you all for listening to the show. This has been It Gets Weird. I've been Niall.
And I'm Kyle, signing out.
Peace.